Hello, I'm Svitek, 360 creative coach, and welcome to my vlog, where it's both my mission and my pleasure to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you, giving you specific takeaway, all that way your journey can be at least a little bit easier. Now, before I fully dive into things, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already, that we get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. So, one of the major kind of aspects of last week was that I was in a lot of meetings where I was literally the dumbest person in the room, so to speak, right? Not literally, but in the sense, on a project that I'm working on, I'm learning about Web3 and how to be able to better utilize it. And that's exciting for me, learning about NFTs, just Discord in general, the metaverse, artificial intelligence, and yada, 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 right? And it's exciting to be able to be that dumbest person in the room because it it signals, right, that I have a lot to learn, and that I am learning, in fact, in those rooms. And what's been nice is I'm okay to essentially, ask the quote-unquote dumb question, right? I'm not afraid to let it be known that, yeah, I'm a newbie in this space, and I am trying to learn. And the reason why I'm having these conversations is so that way I can learn and strategize and move forward in the right way. Right? And I think that's just a good aspect to have. I think sometimes it becomes like one of these things where we have it in our youth, but as we get older, it's that sort of stereotype of getting curmudgeon and not wanting to change your ways. I remember back in the day when, I got first involved in podcasting over a decade ago, when the space was still nascent, like the amount of stuff you had to know in order to put out a podcast was insane. And now all I have to do is just yap into a microphone if I wanted to, and just literally just upload it, and that'd be it, right? So the means of production has changed tremendously, and same thing will be kind of happening with whether artificial intelligence, whether with NFTs and so forth, right? But right now you have to kind of know the full ins and outs. And I'm someone who appreciates that. Like I like being sort of not necessarily the earliest to trends, because I'm certainly not someone like that, but an overall early adapter, because I like to know the inner workings of things. So even if things get easier, I still appreciate the understanding of how things function, on the other side of the curtain, if you will. And that's how, as a filmmaker, for me, I've been able to very much keep things cost-effective, do them fast and efficient, is because of that knowledge and figuring out, okay, if this is how it's supposed to work, how can I create a similar enough way, or combine two things to create a new thing, right? So that's been a big aspect of it, right? And another interesting aspect, I was listening to an episode of the Gary Vee audio experience, and Gary Vee is big in the NFT space, crypto world, and so forth. And one of the things that he was talking about was when he was getting into the space and figuring out who to partner with. His second question to people was, what are you going to do? How will you handle when the marketplace essentially dries up? How will you, move forward with it? And people overall didn't have a good answer for it. The best that many could come up with was, well, we'll market to people. It's like, okay, well, those aren't logistics, right? That's just like a generic term that we all toss around of like, no, of course, we'll market. And, even outside, obviously, the NFT space, I think a lot of times when people are starting off, they'll just use press and marketing, you're like, well, we'll just make a viral video. As if it's just easy to make a video go viral. It's not. So, that's an aspect of it. And what he's really getting at, obviously he wants to know the logistics of people, and how they're approaching this, but also their resolve. Real shit takes time to build. It does. And when I find myself in these rooms, this is in relation to a project that I'm working on and stuff like that. I think a big component of it is people knowing that, like, it's not just a trend for me. I'm doing this because I think it's a great tool to be able to accomplish the project that I would like to accomplish, and it also creatively allows for new things with the project, right? In that I'm in it for the long term. Like, it was interesting. So I did various pitches last week about my upcoming project, right? And, I've talked about this in the past, so if you want to kind of know the specifics of how it all came about, listen to past vlogs of mine. But, the opportunity came up, and so I was meeting with various people, and, there's a person that asked me, like, how much are you looking to raise financially to create this movie? And I said, well, right now I'm aiming for 1.5 million. I was like, okay, that's not bad. And I was like, listen, but at the end of the day, whatever I end up raising, I'll figure out a way to make it happen, right? And I've talked about this in other episodes, but the idea being that, if I have to piecemeal it in some sense, like where I do like maybe a trailer, then do the first act and so forth, and use those as levers to get me to the next round of funding, then so be it. But overall, even if 1.5 million is the goal at the moment, and that could change, that could go up, if I, and stuff like that. But whatever the goal is, ultimately, it doesn't matter, right? Because whatever amount of money I'll end up with, I'll be like, okay, I'll find a way to utilize that, right? Like, that's, my long-term effect of it is I will build it no matter what. And I will put in the time to build it, knowing that, real shit takes time to build. And he really appreciated that answer. He's like, I wish more filmmakers had that attitude. And I was like, well, that's been my whole mantra. That's how I've made 2 movies thus far. It's like, hey, let's go out and make it, and we'll figure it out. And it's not an arrogance, because I know I can do it, and I know, that I can raise capital when needed to raise capital, and I can also micro budget it. I know how to, as I said, be efficient and cost effective in the ways that I do stuff, and a lot of times that means I'm the one doing that stuff, and putting in my own time and effort. Like, I always joke with filmmakers, like, I'm pretty much the only guy I know that does his own subtitles, because I know how much money it will save me. So, there's that aspect of it. But yeah, I think, it leads to a larger point where everyone talks about the grind and the hustle and how great it is, how great they are at it. And it's easy to say that when things are going your way. And that's essentially the crux of Gary's question of, like, what will you do when the well dries up? So, meaning, when things aren't going your way, right? And again, it's not just the NFT space, it's just anything, anything in the creative space, anything you're doing entrepreneurially or life in general, what will you do when things aren't going your way, right? Just like it's easy to preach like self-help and yada yada, like, I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. But the real test of any of that is how you apply it when you're up against the world, so to speak, right? So that's a major aspect of it. And that's why I do the lessons that I do, because, it's my opportunity to share my experiences, share the tactics and mindset that has worked for me and how I've applied it. And, that sort of bend, don't break sort of thing. I've certainly bent a lot of times, but I've not broken. And yeah, that's what we're talking about. And for me, I'm at a place now where my record does sort of speak for itself, where, yeah, I'm in it for the long haul, and I will find a way to get it done. Like, I'm not just about trends. I'm not just about, okay, yeah, it'd be nice if I could do X, Y, and Z, but no, I'm there. I'm doing it. So far, I've completed 2 feature films. I'm in development on a third. I wrote a novel. I wrote a nonfiction book. I'm writing another novel, and I'm working on another nonfiction book, which is a how-to about filmmaking, right? And it chronicles my journey of making my first one, called Love Market, and tries to really inspire people to, both inspire and give them the tactics to make theirs. And it's been fun to do that. Just as a quick tangent to all of this, it's been fun to work on that, because one of the ways that I started it was after I had finished it, I mapped out chapters for the book and essentially dictated those chapters much in the same way I'm doing right now, so I can get them transcribed, knowing that revisions would have to happen and so forth. But it was a good way of essentially journaling those thoughts, because it's been so long since I made that first movie, at least like mentally. I mean, time-wise, that movie came out in 2020 before the pandemic, but 2020, and now we're coming up on 2023, so almost 3 years, give or take. But in that, it feels like a lifetime ago, simply because now I've made my second movie and learned so much just from that experience, and one wishes to put some of that knowledge in there, but you just kind of need to provide the baby steps, right? And so it's just been fun to sort of go down memory lane, if you will, with that first project through all of this. And, fingers crossed by the end of 2023 that this book will be out in the market for filmmakers and people alike. But so I've been working on that as well. But just that slow, slow incremental progress consistently over time. That's what I'm about. And that's what's yielded my results. People say I'm prolific. Well, in my mind, not prolific enough, but, as long as I'm making progress, then I'm okay. Going back to the pitches, one thing I did want to know that's been interesting. I remember someone, the whole reason why the pitches happened was because, people had seen my second movie, A Bogota Trip, and, wanted to meet with me, and that was great. And it was interesting, I was talking with one person, and they were like, hey, so, who, tell me a little bit about the journey, essentially. And, I did, and I was, I kind of made the comparison, a lot of times, what I've been working on is very much the Rob Rodriguez style of Rebel Without a Crew. Obviously, I have some people, there with me, and they're very integral, and I couldn't do it without them. But we're a small band of misfits, if you will, right? And then it was asked, who edited the movie? And I was like, I did. And I knew exactly where the question was ultimately headed, or what the thought behind it was. And it's interesting when you can anticipate that and kind of bring it to the forefront, because what the person was essentially trying to get at was, a lot of times when filmmakers, especially novice ones, or just aspiring ones, let's say, not that I am that, but one could lump me within that category or ideology, let's say. They get too precious about their stuff, and they don't cut and kill your babies, as it were, which is a terrible term. But the idea is you want, whether it's writing, whether it's a movie, maximum effect in the shortest amount of time, right? That's storyteller's goal, or it should be, their goal. And so I knew that's what the crux of this question was, because most directors who edit their own movies can't do that. They're too blinded by the love that they have for a particular scene, particular moment, and it just ends up being bloated because of that fact. I was like, no, I'm not precious at all. I do test screenings. I have good collaborators with me who tell me when things drag, and 99 out of 100 times I will listen to them, but and that one time out of 100 I will kind of hold my ground if I really love something, but I'm not overly precious with anything, and that's why the movie is a very straightforward 93 minutes, when other filmmakers might have made it 2 hours, right? So, because I have the audience in mind and I want them to have a good experience and enjoy the movie and not have it drag and so forth, and so far that's been working, right? So and that was an answer that person appreciated, and more so, I think they also appreciated that I knew where the question was headed or what the underpinnings of it were. So yeah, it was now this week I've got to kind of follow up with the various people that I did meet with and all that stuff. So that's on the to-do list. But overall, very good experience. And this wasn't in person. It was very interesting, right? When we talk about the metaverse, I essentially kind of logged on, and you're in this coffee shop, waiting for the meeting to start, and then you get taken into this virtual office, and there's the person behind the desk. You see their image, and then you're kind of in the chair, and it's very wild. And I don't know, not that I have a preference of what's better or worse. Obviously, that was the opportunity. This is how we were meeting, and so you'll take it. And I thought, even though it was virtual, it was engaging. I thought it was meaningful and things of that nature, right? So that's all I can ask for, right? Another thing, kind of shifting gears slightly, is turning routine into ritual. This is a notion from a podcast that I work on called Yoga Girl, Conversations from the Heart. And I've been thinking a lot about that, because I think when we think of routine, when we think of routine, we think of mundane or chores and tasks, just these menial things that we do over and over. And then therefore they're not significant, we're not present, life just kind of passes us by, so to speak, right? But a lot of times, the things that we do, we want to create routines because it systematizes how we operate, right? Just boring things, let's say, like cleaning your house, cooking, laundry, brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, whatever it may be, just these things that we have to do over and over, whether on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or just a monthly basis, whatever. But giving them some sort of, not that they are mystical and spiritual, but we can approach them as such, and create them not just be routines, but be more like rituals, and then we pay attention more to the moments. And how can we have essentially fun doing those things, and then life becomes that much more enjoyable, People, it's funny how many people argue with me on this point. But, through therapy, one of the big discoveries was hey, if you want to live longer, just be present in every moment. They're yeah, but, and it's well, majority of people, fine, someone might live to be 110, but if they're not present in any of those moments, how much have they lived versus somebody that yeah, fine, maybe tragically someone lives to be 25 years old, but if they really lived life to the fullest and were present in every moment, and I'm not saying they have to go skydiving or whatever, but truly just were present in those moments, and let's say in this case, as I'm arguing, turn routine into ritual, then that to me is a far more fulfilled life than someone just because the longevity of their life is long, right? So you increase your life just by being present, and turning routine into ritual, that's essentially a way to do that, a tactic, right? And so I've been really kind of considering that, and would implore you to do the same, right? So yeah, there's that. The last thing that I just want to touch upon is, when you finish a movie, as I have now, it goes to QC, quality control. And quality control is a very interesting process because, you essentially put your movie through this machine and, it'll flag anything and everything it feels is, a problem, right? Now, what's been interesting is, a lot of times that also includes artistic choices, right? Gets flagged as not passing the mustard, so to speak. And so, this is essentially the second time I'm going through the process. This time it's a little bit different because the deliverables that I need to have are a little bit more meticulous. And deliverables meaning, the movie in certain formats, having certain assets along with it as far as sound and visuals and blah, 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 right? Just the nitty-gritty, boring stuff, if you will, the technical details. And so I'm in the process of quality controlling it, and I will definitely kind of do a more official follow-up and walk people through this, because I think a lot of filmmakers don't know this process, but I just wanted to kind of note it because one of my friends is about to enter his first QC phase of it. And yeah, it's an interesting process, and much like with anything, if you're kind of not aware of it, then it can shock you, right? Because I was telling him, like, hey, listen, here's how it overall works, and because it goes through the computer, I can tell you, like, these moments in your film will probably be rejected. Now, does that mean that it's not good or whatever? No, it means those were the artistic choices that you made, but just the computer is going to interpret them as incorrect, right? So just giving you a forewarning so you don't hang yourself after you get the QC report. An example specifically of something like this is, if you have, let's say, handheld footage, it might know like handheld footage is shaky. And it's like, okay, have you seen The Bourne Identity? Because how the hell was that ever going to pass, QC if handheld was shaky? Like, that's all it is, especially the action scenes, all handheld shaky cam, right? So, that's a choice. Also, sometimes, you might have a window that's overexposed within a frame. And it's like, I've seen literally Hollywood like $200 million budget movies where something's overexposed. Of course, again, like some of it's an artistic choice. But, the computer flags that stuff, right? So just knowing how to approach this and, being able to then navigate once the report comes in of, okay, what do you truly need to fix versus not, right? And yeah, like I said, I'm going to kind of dive into greater aspects of that soon, but just wanted to kind of talk about it as an introduction here. By the way, speaking of my journey and just things in general, on my Patreon page, patreon.com/PhilSvitek, I post various behind-the-scenes aspects, give you some insights. Like, I was talking about the pitch deck in this one. I posted the various phases of the pitch deck and, even just including my notes to the graphic designer and so forth, so you can kind of see how I create a lot of this stuff, which has been interesting, right? So if you're curious about that aspect of it, that's on my Patreon. Also, it's a chance for us to connect, more directly, and I do monthly Q&As, offer up other fun stuff as well. And the good news is there's just one tier, there's just one price. It's $10 a month for everybody, keeping it very simple and affordable. So, that's available to you as well if you so choose to. And this Saturday, December 17th, I'm having a Q&A, right? So for the month of December, that's coming up. So if you're interested in that, go sign up on Patreon. But anyway, thank you so much. As always, truly appreciate you and hope to see you next time.